Fire Stephanie White. This team is fucking garbage. Garbage. This team is trash, bro. This coach is trash. This is sabotage, man. This is straight up sabotage. There's no way around it. There's no way around it, bro. This team is garbage, bro. This team is more garbage than the bag I'm in, man. Like, how you go get bumped? Bro, we was down 25, damn near 30 versus the Portland Fire. Their first 100-point game in franchise history. Stephanie White's ass needs to be fired right now.
Every single observer processing this debacle must grapple with the confusing logic of watching a generational prodigy dominate the hardwood, only to intentionally restrict her impact. It is baffling to witness a staff evaluate the premier scoring threat in professional hoops and habitually devise schemes that bypass her rather than funneling the action directly through her lethal skill set. The most unsettling inquiry is determining exactly when a continuous streak of bizarre maneuvers transitions from poor planning into intentional sabotage, especially since the community is reacting to an extensive track record rather than a single evening. The utter exhaustion heard in the uproar is the echo of a collective that has entirely depleted its reserves of tolerance. The recurring realization that should terrify the front office is that failing to orchestrate scenarios where an elite phenomenon thrives doesn't merely sacrifice immediate victories, it squanders the most crucial championship window this organization will ever experience. Caitlin Clark is not merely an asset, she is the sole driver of their national relevance, the catalyst for packed stadiums, merchandise explosions, and premium television slots in Indiana. Any leadership group failing to anchor their entire strategic foundation around maximizing her unparalleled abilities is fundamentally defaulting on their primary job description, which is precisely the tragedy supporters feel they are witnessing firsthand. The outrage cuts incredibly deep because it stems from dedicated viewers who monitored every single possession, analyzing the rotations and momentum swings with hawkish intensity. What unfolded during the initial phases of that contest was genuinely sickening to witness, because the superstar initiated the matchup brilliantly, dictating the tempo and accumulating statistics exactly as designed. The squad held a solid advantage, the trajectory was incredibly promising, and then the substitution occurred inexplicably not during an intermission, not following a sloppy sequence, but squarely amid a dominant run. The instant she took a seat, the foundation established during those early moments disintegrated with terrifying speed. The advantage evaporated, the rhythm flatlined, and the self-inflicted wounds sustained during her absence created a deficit that typically requires an entire evening to overcome, assuming a comeback is even mathematically possible.
Fire Stephanie White. This team is fucking garbage. Garbage. This team is trash, bro. This coach is trash. This is sabotage, man. This is straight up sabotage. There's no way around it. There's no way around it, bro. This team is garbage, bro. This team is more garbage than the bag I'm in, man. Like, how you go get bumped? Bro, we was down 25, damn near 30 versus the Portland Fire. Their first 100-point game in franchise history. Stephanie White's ass needs to be fired right now. Right fucking now. Get her the fuck up out of here. I'm sick of it. I am sick of this shit. I'm sick of it. I cannot stomach watching this bozo the clown of a coach sit here and purposely sabotage Caitlin Clark from the beginning of the game.
The dilemma wrestling with the psyche of every fan reviewing this catastrophe grows increasingly disturbing the longer it stews in their minds. At what juncture do we cease chalking up these bizarre sequences to stylistic differences and start scrutinizing them as calculated negligence? It begs the question of how many iterations of this exact meltdown must transpire before the executives acknowledge their blueprint is fundamentally broken, especially when glaring statistical evidence and deafening public outcry fail to inspire a single meaningful adjustment. Supporters aren't hallucinating this trend. They are meticulously chronicling every misstep, and the compiled dossier is absolutely devastating. The realization bubbling to the surface, despite the immense discomfort it causes, is that this magnitude of perpetual blundering transcends mere rookie mistakes or temporary lapses in judgment. Capable floor generals pivot, interpret shifts in the game's emotional tide, safeguard their primary scorer's momentum, and construct their overarching philosophy around keeping their most potent weapons positioned for triumph. when the brain trust habitually executes the exact opposite, repeatedly sabotaging runs at the most vulnerable intervals and generating the identical disastrous outcomes without any tangible pivots, they forfeit a commodity that is virtually impossible to restore. They obliterate goodwill, and currently the faith linking the fan base to the front office has plummeted to historic depths, seemingly without anyone in the executive suites grasping the severity of the disconnect. This superstar transcends traditional athletic boundaries to embody a cultural phenomenon, demanding that every internal resolution mirror the gravity of her impact. The loyalists have fulfilled their end of the bargain by purchasing tickets, tuning in, and vocalizing their observations with clarity. The burden now rests entirely on the decision-makers to implement the mandatory overhauls this crisis requires, or simply shoulder the blame for the greatness they squander. The opportunity to construct a dynasty around an unparalleled marvel has a finite expiration date, and currently, every botched rotation represents another precious second ticking away from that legacy. Smash that subscription button, because we refuse to release our grip on this narrative until the individuals holding the clipboard start providing satisfactory explanations.
Stephanie White is a pure bozo. This team is garbage. Like, make no mistake about it, this team is trash, bro. This team is trash. I sat there. We've sat here. The Indiana Fever, this started from the first quarter. In the first 2.5 minutes of the game, Caitlin Clark has 2 points, 3 assists, and a rebound. We off and rolling. We up 8-4. We come out of commercial break. Where the hell is Caitlin Clark at? Caitlin Clark got put on the bench with 6.5 minutes left in the first freaking quarter. You have got to be kidding me, Stephanie White. Why is she coming out the first after 3 minutes? Why? The girl can't even get warm. She can't even get warm. And we got the lead. She got 2 points, 3 assists, 1 rebound. We up 8-4. She comes out of the game. When she comes back in, we are down 17-10. We went from being...
The heat surrounding Stephanie White is reaching critical mass after her choice to sideline Caitlin Clark exploded in spectacular fashion. This was far from a simple tactical error. It felt like a deliberate flex of authority that failed miserably on the biggest stage, and the immediate remorse was palpable to everyone watching. Supporters have been sounding alarms regarding this leadership group's judgment for a while, but yesterday evening's substitution showcased those glaring flaws to a national audience. The sting of this situation is amplified because it wasn't an isolated incident, but rather the culmination of endless frustrations reaching their absolute limit, pushing loyal ticket holders and jersey-wearing diehards past their breaking point. When you possess arguably the most dynamic floor general in the sport and elect to pull her from the action, onlookers naturally wonder what point the leadership is attempting to make, and who ultimately pays the price. The second the number 22 jersey took a seat, the squad's entire identity shifted dramatically, as the scoring halted and the arena's electricity vanished. Spectators who specifically paid to witness her greatness watched helplessly as a marquee matchup morphed into a brutal showcase of just how heavily the roster relies on a single superstar's flawless execution. You cannot remove your primary catalyst and feign shock when the offensive machinery grinds to a halt, nor can you bench your biggest draw and act bewildered when the structure crumbles. Watching the resulting basketball was excruciating, and every soul in the venue recognized the root cause, which is exactly why demands for a coaching overhaul are escalating rapidly and legitimately. This fury extends well beyond a solitary misstep, originating from an observant community that has meticulously tracked every baffling lineup tweak, bizarre rotation, and nonsensical adjustment for months. They offered endless grace to the staff, but yesterday was the undeniable tipping point where all that pent-up resentment finally locked onto a specific target. The head coach made her move. The immediate fallout was disastrous, and now a furious community demands transparency, consequences, and a major shift in direction. We need to dissect the anatomy of this breakdown, its devastating impact, and what it signals for the franchise's trajectory. So sound off below, because the raw fury erupting across digital platforms is entirely justified.
Why are you taking her out in the first quarter every time? Then she comes back in. Now we're down. They have all the momentum. They got all the momentum on us. They got all the momentum. She's cold because she never got a chance to get warm because Stephanie White takes her out every 3 minutes. From that point on, when Caitlin Clark came out in the first quarter, this game turned into an all-out shit show. That's just the facts. Anybody that watched this game know. We was in control in the beginning. Per usual, when Caitlin Clark is on the floor, she came out of the game and it turned into a clown show, a straight up shit show. I just got to be real. Everybody that was watching saw it. Stephanie White, you can't be this dumb. You bozo clown. You cannot be this dumb to where you think this is smart. This has to be intentional. I don't think it's possible for someone to be as stupid as Stephanie White appears to be right now. So I'm assuming this has to be intentionally done. This has to be sabotage. Everybody need to be fired. Stephanie White, your ass can go. Lynn Dunn, your old ass can go. Kelly Crosskoff, pack it up. Amber Cox, all of y'all need to pack your bags and get the hell out of here right now. Everybody can go as far as I'm concerned. When I like, for what? This team is garbage. This team is garbage now. You guys have...
This isn't some sanitized corporate sports take. It's the unfiltered agony of dedicated followers who endured every second of that contest and hit a threshold of disgust that resonates universally. When a defeat registers not merely as an athletic shortcoming, but as a fundamentally avoidable disaster, supporters abandon polite critiques and deliver brutal honesty. The prevailing sentiment echoing through the faithful is that the sideline management transcended ordinary incompetence and ventured into unforgivable territory, forcing people to wonder if the objective is actual victory or merely asserting dominance over the most spectacular talent to ever wear the uniform. The haunting dilemma lingering in the consciousness of every spectator offers no soothing resolution regarding why leadership would extract their premier difference-maker right when she is flourishing, and the scoreboard reflects a clear advantage. It defies all rational basketball intellect to sideline the very individual actively dismantling the opposition, yet the brass watched an agonizing 11-point swing materialize the moment she sat, somehow without directing the blame squarely at their own clipboards. This disastrous sequence was not a fluke or a twist of fate. It was the empirical, undeniable fallout of an intervention that lacked any foundational logic. The harsh truth of the sport is that competitive rhythm is incredibly delicate, and seasoned tacticians comprehend that preserving a surge is equally critical to sparking one. When your transcendent athlete is locked in, accelerating the pace and dominating the matchup, you empower that surge rather than artificially short-circuiting the groove she painstakingly established. Confronted with the staggering reality that a 4-point cushion mutated into a 7-point crater during her brief stint on the Pine, one must admit this isn't a stylistic choice but a catastrophic, glaring, and utterly preventable blunder. The loyalists have finished pretending this is normal, pointing out that this specific critique exposes the core dysfunction regarding how her minutes are distributed. We aren't dissecting an isolated breather, but rather a chronic cycle that surfaces night after night, yielding the identical miserable consequences without fail. The rationale is straightforward and fiercely validated by visual evidence. Whenever she commands the floor, the roster operates as a cohesive, lethal machine boasting organized spacing, methodical pacing, and relentless fight. Yet the millisecond she steps out of bounds, the entire structure implodes, the offensive flow evaporates, and opponents sense vulnerability, unleashing runs that force the squad to spend grueling stretches desperately attempting to equalize. The most infuriating aspect of this recurring nightmare is that she gets thrust back into the chaos completely freezing cold, devoid of rhythm, and forced to navigate a defense that has fully recalibrated its intensity. This is a deliberate blueprint for disaster, and the viewing public is absolutely sick of watching this self-sabotage unfold continuously, while the architects of the collapse evade any semblance of professional accountability.